Hello guys and welcome to another all-new Couchisode. I am Blade.
And I am DJ.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
And we are here today again, guys, to talk about some lovely old games. And
Moldy games.
Moldy games, exactly. And have you noticed our statistics for the last two videos? I don't know what's going on, man. I have no idea what's going on. People are going insane, you know, over 1,000 views on a video. I mean, who are we? Linus Tech Tips?
You know, people have problems going to the toilet, so we're motivation there. Okay?
Maybe that's it. I mean, if it does assist you guys with your bowel movements, this is actually okay. I mean,
we're go for it.
We just want to help people. We want to talk about games. That if this helps you doing something else, then, you know, it's absolutely fine. We're totally okay with that. And we appreciate the fact that you know, keep bringing us some nice little views. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, Blade, what are we going to talk about? I mean, okay, so I'm going to stop with this question. We know what we're going to talk about. So
we do?
The question is, well, I know what we're going to talk about. It's games, but we don't know which games. So which games are we going to talk about today, Blade? You can kick right off today.
Yeah, games with mold. We have to start calling them games with mold. Wow, sounds good. So
GWM.
Yeah.
So it's the name of a great company.
Oh yeah. So anyhow, I'm going to talk about a good NES game, a good moldy game from 1984, if I recall right. It came out only in 87 in Europe. 84 was the original release date in Japan for a game called Hogans Alley. Do you know this one?
No.
No?
No, I do not. I mean, it's NES, so you gotta understand that, you know,
You had a clone. You should know this.
No. I had a clone, but I spent my time playing Duck Hunt. What do you want? That's
similar.
all I played with the...
This was the same thing. It wasn't Duck Hunt. It was different. It was in a shooting alley. It was a light gun game. You should have played this one. Shame on you.
I probably did. I just don't remember it. It might be, you know, it might be that the case, you know.
Yeah, no, but this was a simple game. There isn't much to talk about it. But I played this a lot. You know, light gun games were quite a thing back then, especially on the NES, where most of the consoles came with a gun bundled with it. And it was quite simple. You got into a shooting range. You had some sticks just coming on screen and rotating. You had some enemies and some innocents. You had to shoot the bad guys real quick and not shoot the good guys. It was this simple. And as you progressed, you would evolve from the shooting range to a more advanced shooting range with a scenario where you had windows and doors, and they would just randomly pop in and out of the image.
Okay.
And you'd still have to shoot the bad guys and not the good guys. It was that simple. If you shot a good guy, you lost a life. If you lost all the lives, you're gone. Game over. And every 5 levels, you got a bonus game where you had 10 shots. And someone threw a can from the right side of the screen, and you just had to hit the can and keep hitting it in the air so it would reach the other side to the top of a wall, so you could get the bonus.
It's like shooting plates, no?
Yeah.
Like there was a game where you'd shoot plates. I don't know if that was in Duck Hunt.
It was right? No, in Duck Hunt you could play with the Duck Hunt scene or the plate shooting scene. That was for training, supposedly.
Shooting. Yes.
Yeah, but that's a whole different game. This was just a simple shooting range game. Simple, but back then it was awesome. Because you just had the bad guys and gangsters popping up and you just bang, bang. It was awesome. And now that I actually know how a light gun works, it's quite a simple process to get that to work. And I will always wonder why they didn't work in today's TVs, in modern TVs. It's because of the cinescope on the TVs. The flashing light was what activated the gun. Because every time you shot, if you looked closely, you'd see the screen go entirely black and have some white square.
I saw this being deconstructed and shown on. I believe it was on the slow-mo guys in YouTube. I mean, basically the thing is that they deconstruct how the cathode rays tube work, and how the light guns would respond to that. Although the old light guns don't work on the normal, LCD screens that we have today, there's actually some guns being made for LCD screens and to be used with several consoles, not just with the NES. They are compatible with a number of consoles,
so
although they
can
are
actually
not...
get those nowadays.
No,
They're
you
not
can.
easy to find, but you can actually get them now.
The problem is that they are not very cheap. I saw a decent one. It was costing around, I believe, between 150 to 200 euros.
Yeah.
And, it's a big investment just for a light gun. But again, the enthusiasts, I'm sure that they would love it. And I mean, shooting games from that time went, I believe, since the early days in the NES with Duck Hunt and games like that to, something more advanced like the Virtual Co-op, like the...
so awesome.
I can't remember any other titles right now. It's always this. I'm trying to remember a title from a specific genre.
You had Point Blank, Time Splitters. You had a few. You had a Jurassic Park game on the arcade where you had a machine gun mounted.
Oh, yes.
That was
awesome.
Yes,
I remember that. I remember that one.
So awesome.
Especially on the arcades. Yeah, indeed. Thank you for bringing that one for us today. I did not play... I might have played it. I looked at I'm
pretty sure you did.
I'm looking at sneaking my eyes to my second screen, and I'm looking at the gameplay trailer at the same time, just to see if I remember it. There's something that I remember about it, but I don't really know if I did play it that much. But it's something I would like to try, but without a light gun now. Maybe I'll make a use of my clone now. I have a clone here that I still need to fix, and it has a light gun. I have the light gun.
You just need to get a TV that will work with it.
I can get that. It's not a problem. I actually have a friend that has some of those from an electronics business that he does have. So I think I can manage to get one. But again, I think I'll try it with the clone that I have. Maybe I'll be able to do something with it.
Game.
So, game. Yes, exactly, game. So I'm going to bring up, a PC game again. Obviously, the news. Nobody was expecting that I would bring a PC game. But it's a game that has a very, very... how can I say? This is a very cringy story for me. And I was just a kid when this happened. And this was my first experience that I had with the harms of, or what the bad things about computers and IT and so on. But I'll get into that in a minute. So the game I'm going to talk about is Network Q RAC Rally from 1993. So this was developed by Pixelcraft, and it was published by Europress in Europe, and it was actually published by Accolade in the US. So this game was what the name, really says. It's a rally game that was based on one of the rounds of the FIA World Rally Championship that would happen in the UK, and it was known until 1997 as the RAC Rally. They later changed the name to the British, I believe, the Great Britain Rally. That's the name that it has still to this day. The game had fantastic graphics for 1993, and although it wasn't praised by its realism, it was a landmark title of the rally genre that was back in the day. For me, the most special thing I remember about this game was the night driving scenes, because the way that the lights reflected on the road. I mean, there was no reflection there. It was just basically they would darken the rest of the screen and just make a halo where the lights would point. But I was looking at it and I was like, oh man, this is really, really good. And, it might not look like much if you look at it today, but when it was back on my 386 days, it's one of those titles that I clearly remember and I cherish a lot. Compared to the other games, I mean, the QAC Rally did not stand a chance against the more advanced simulation that you had at the time of F1 GP from Microprose, or even the IndyCar racing. I mean, those are great simulators. They were not the same genre, but that's exactly the point. There was not a lot of many rally games at the time, and for that matter, I think that's what led this initial modest success of the first game into then the successor, which was the Network Q RAC Rally Championship that came in 1986, and that already had 3D graphics, a lot more cars, and so on and so forth. Yeah. But we'll leave that one, to talk about in another Couchisode. Now, no longer about this game, but while trying to play this game, I remember that I got this on, I'm not sure if it was one or two floppy disk drives. And I remember that I tried to play this on my computer. It worked fine. I could play it. But then I was coming out of school and I had the discs on my backpack. And I went to my mother's office. And this was the early 90s. So the computers you would see there, it was like 286s, 386s, and, you know, those big dot matrix printers that you had. And I brought this game. And I said, okay, so before we go home, can I just, you know, sit down on the computer and just play this game? And I put the discs and I played the game. And I played for like, I don't know, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. And then I just took the discs out and went home. The next day, when my mom goes back to the office, the computers did not work. The computer, the actual computer that I worked on. There was no network connection at that time, so there was not really a problem with what happened. So the computers did not work. And later on, I knew when I got the discs and I brought the discs to a friend of mine, to a computer at a friend of mine's house. Those discs had a virus, a very well-known virus from our time, which is called the Barrotis. You remember?
The Barrotis bar. Oh, yeah.
So those discs were infected, and you know what Barrotis does? What the virus does is basically it attaches itself to .com and .exe files, and the first thing that this virus infects is the command.com. This was back in the MS-DOS era, so you know when you just basically corrupt command.com, it just doesn't load up. DOS does not load up anymore. And obviously I was accused immediately saying that, oh, you know, it was you with the discs and stuff like that. And I said, but it cannot be because I played this game at home. What I did not realize is that my computer at home actually had an antivirus that cleaned it up and blocked it before I could even do anything to it. I don't know if I didn't remember when I brought the discs to another computer and so on. The thing was, it was infected. I got a beating from my mother. Yes, I did. Because I basically destroyed the computer full of accounting data from several customers. And it was not cheap to recover that back then. And
no,
yes,
it wasn't.
I got a well-deserved spanking. So
you learned.
Sorry, guys. Now you know a bit of my life. I destroyed the computer with old viruses on MS-DOS. Yes, I did. And I believe that even happened a few years later with my own computer at home. It was some kind of unknown antivirus. There was no internet, so the antivirus that we had back then, they were not getting constantly updated. We needed to go to someone else's house or wait for it to come out on a magazine updates or stuff like that.
So antivirus,
many times we're just using outdated versions of the antivirus that would exist, and I mean I was not updating that. Virus would not come out like they do today. It was like maybe 3, 4, 10 in a year. It's not like hundreds of them like today. But guys, just a funny story for you to know. Before I actually knew a lot about IT, I started by destroying things, and I did some of them.
Actually, the first time I got my hands on my own personal computer, it took like 20 minutes for me to screw it up, and I just went to our neighbor's house and said, "Hey, you gotta help me. My father just got me a new computer. I need to get it to work again before he gets back home." And we did.
Yeah, the worst one I did was blowing up a power supply by doing something as simple as pulling out the power cord without the computer not being turned off.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, today this doesn't happen because there's surge protection, there's everything. But back then, when computers had to be shut down on the button, this was a two-phase button. It was either be on or off. Yeah. Not to mention the damage that this does to hard drives, like the needles would slam on the plates and stuff like that. But again, let's not develop into that anymore because otherwise we're going to be extending this conversation for a long time. So, what do you have for us now, Blade?
Okay, so I have another cool game today, and I'll be bringing an arcade game for a change. And this was a pretty cool game from Capcom. It came out in 94 or 93. No, I think it was 93. It came out a few years later in Europe, and it was called The Punisher.
Oh, yes.
You played this one?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
This one was quite awesome. It reminded me at the time of Final Fight, They were slightly similar. They actually used a similar engine or the same engine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was CPS 1 or 2, but they used a similar engine. And you played as Nick Fury or the Punisher. You had both of them to play with, but the story of the game was the standard one from the Punisher. You went out with his family for a picnic, they witnessed the mafia killing, they tried to kill him because they don't want any witnesses, he ends up surviving and he wants to avenge his family. This is the basic storyline, and you go after who? The same criminal as always, the Kingpin. It was always the same one. So you had a couple of levels. You had the typical bad guys you just beat up. You had a couple of weapons like bats, shurikens, you had swords, you had guns, you had pipes, you had everything to play with. What I liked about this game is that it was quite fast. Usually when you had beat 'em up games, they had that rhythm you went through the game. This one was actually quite faster than the other ones, and it was quite enjoyable. And it was much more fun when you played it with a friend. And having just the Punisher and Nick Fury on screen at the same time, the Punisher was an awesome character. He was. And just being able to beat everything up in the game was awesome. And you had a couple of bosses that just stood out, that were big robots, that took ages for you to get them down. And before you knew the mechanics of the fight, you would just lose coin after coin in the arcades, before you just learned the fight. But it was quite an awesome game.
I don't remember playing it on the arcades. In fact, I don't even remember. I think I played it, to be honest with you, now that I'm remembering about it. I think I played it on a borrowed Mega Drive that I had from a neighbor.
Yeah. I think it only came out on the Mega Drive.
A buttload of games. And this was when the Saturn came out. He had a Mega Drive. And the Saturn came out. And he bought it also. I mean, his parents bought him, and he borrowed me the consoles, because, as I said, I was never much of a console person, and by that time, I think the consoles that I had was the clone, the NES clone, or the Game Boy. But trying a 16-bit console was fun, and I think that game was there. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure when I played it. I mean, what year or anything like that. But it was Capcom. We know how those games were going. Like these usual beat 'em ups in the style of Streets of Rage and stuff like that. We knew about this game. But the thing is that it's the story about the Punisher. If you guys don't know the story about the Punisher or want to refresh it, go over to Netflix. There's a really good series there. It's one of the last that Netflix actually made with the Marvel. From the Marvel universe, because now everything is going to Disney Plus. But it's a great series, and I think that it was really good for me to refresh the story of the Punisher. But anyways, the story is that about his family. About the game itself, I can't say I played it that much. I know it because I was very used to that type of fighting, or not fighting, but beat 'em up games from the arcades that then were ported to consoles. So, definitely a good one. I don't remember that much about it, but I did play.
It was very nice.
Yeah, indeed it was. So, I think that it's the time that we go ahead to our last game to wrap it up. It's gonna be PC again. So, sorry about that.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I don't know how you know this many PC games. Look, it seems like you barely played anything else.
I only played PC. What do you want me to do? I only had computers, man. Yeah. Some people could say I was lucky. Some other would say that I missed on an entire new generation of games, and I did. I know I did, but I fixed that later. Anyways, the game I'm going to be talking about is Descent from 1995, and it was developed by Parallax and published by Interplay. So it's another one that brings me to the 386 days, but I had a very bittersweet experience with this game. But I'll tell you what it was in a minute. So Descent is an FPS that graphically just looks like Doom, or in the style of Doom, System Shock, Heretic, and so on. But the innovation here was that it allowed you to play and move freely in 360 degrees, which was quite difficult at that time. It would cause some motion sickness, but again, that's not the point. We'll talk about it. And I guess that this was what gave its leading edge and the commercial success that it was exactly that. It grabbed an already existing style that was already, you know, in the market with some very good titles, but it gave it like the freedom of movement. And I think that was the main point. In Descent, will take on the role of a mercenary who's tasked to eliminate a mysterious alien computer virus that is infecting off-world mining robots. We descend, hence the name Descent, in a small spaceship to the depths of several mines on various planets of the solar system, and we're going to have to be destroying infected and rogue robots that will attack us. In each one of the 30 levels, the objective is to collect the key or the keys to advance to the next one. When we finally reach the last level, the reactor core is actually replaced by a boss that we have to fight in order to beat the game. So, I mean, there's not a lot of, you know, innovative things here. It's just like a typical first-person shooter game. The game was actually, as I said, a huge success. In 3 years, sold 1.1 million copies, and I guess it really capitalized on the FPS lovers because, you know, it brought a new way of playing such a genre, and you know, it had starships and pew pew pew, and you know, it's always fun, right? So
starships and pew pew pew.
Exactly. Okay. So this game is actually available on GOG. It costs €8, and I must say that, you know, despite that it's a game that I consider that it didn't really age well because of the gameplay mechanics, it's still a great title to play, as well as Descent 2 and 3. They are also available there. Very similar prices, and it's very nice to have. Now, what was the bad thing or the bad experience that I said that I had with this game? No, it didn't have any viruses, so we don't need to talk about that. But this game actually did not run on my 386 when I tried it for the first time, and I was so disappointed. Yes, this game had minimum requirements of 486, and I did not go from 386 to 486. I actually jumped from my 386, I believe, to a Pentium, a first generation Pentium, 120 megahertz. It was quite a leap, but you know, at that time things were evolving so fast that from the early 90s, where you had the or the late 80s and early 90s, where you had the 386 computers and then the 486, immediately we came to that era of no, actually I did not go to a Pentium. I actually had the K7, an AMD K7, but I'll try to remember that story before. And it was when I had that K7 that I was actually able to play this game, because with the 386 I was not able to do it. It simply didn't run. I remember that back in the MS-DOS era, we had to fill with the extended memory, with the expanded memory, with the conventional memory, and I tried everything, and I could not have this game to run. So I only played it later on, and once again, another little bit of memorabilia. I obtained this game from the news groups of the internet, if you remember. When the games were shared there before, you know, all the piracy went on and stuff like that.
Binaries.
Yeah, the binaries, exactly.
I actually got my hands on that game for the first time on a PC format floppy disk that came with the magazine. The game came there.
Oh yeah, because this was the same approach that id Software and, you know, Apogee and stuff like that, they did, which was there was the first episode released on shareware, and then the rest of the game you had to buy.
Exactly.
And anyways, it was a really good game. I think it was a breath of fresh air. FPS was already very established on the market. You know, there was other titles, but the fact that you could be on a spaceship and use a joystick to actually move 360 degrees. Jesus. It was really fun. Gave me some motion sickness at times, but to be honest, I think it was one of those games that was really worth it. And guys, you can play it still to this day. Check it out, GOG, give it a go. Excellent game, and any others that you might like to try. So what do you think, Blade? Do you want to close this off today yourself?
Yeah, sure. But before we actually close this today, don't forget, guys, leave a like. It really helps us. Just hit the subscribe button so you get notifications. Also hit the little bell icon. Yeah, like. And if you actually need help with your bowel movement, it seems we actually have good videos for that. Take your phone to the bathroom, just watch the Couch Buddies. It will naturally come out. Seriously. And after that, just listen to what we say and go get some nice, good old games to play with and have fun with them. Until next week, guys, have fun and game on.
See you guys. Game on. See you next week.